while we wait for more of you guys to join, let us know where you are tuning in from in the chat. It's always a great way to spend the first minute or so seeing where you guys are from in the world, and yeah, we'll just wait until more of you join and start the session. So yeah, feel free to use the chat throughout the session. We'll grab questions from the chat as well, and yeah, I think Andy, if you're ready, we can begin today's session. Frank, the chat works. Your test went through. All right. So, hey, Grant. Today we're joined by Jeremy Ausmus. His resume speaks for itself: 6 WSOP bracelets, 28 million in live earnings, and to top it all off, he's also a Run It Once elite coach. Jeremy, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Gary says he can't hear us. Is that a problem for anyone else? I don't think it is. All right, sweet. So we kind of touched on this a little bit just before we started the call, but when was the last time you actually played Scoop or like a long online series?
Oh, it's been a long time. I mean, I never unlocked my Stars account from 2011, so I haven't done a scoop for it's going to be 15 years. I used to love W Coop and Scoop and all that stuff. That was great, but yeah, not available to me anymore. Online, I mainly played live series for several years now, so when it is online, it's maybe some WSOP events they have, and it's
Several
not
years
like
now.
a
So
real, there's not like multiple events every day, and you can fill out a schedule because it's kind of different here in the States. So I haven't really dug into a real a schedule full like that online for a long, long time.
Yeah, yeah. And is that because of essentially your location that you're located in the US and you just can't fill out a whole schedule? Or is it kind of like one of those things where when you play high stakes live tournaments, you essentially graduate eventually to like all of these like super high rollers where it just kind of doesn't make even sense to play online anymore?
Yeah, it's kind of both, I mean, I think we've seen such a resurgence or not a resurgence, but an explosion of the live high stakes scene in the States, maybe partly because there's not a lot of online poker. And then everyone's a little different. I know some people like Chris Mormon, he still plays, he loves online, so he just can't get enough of online. You rarely see him in a live event. So he
Yeah.
stays very busy online, just playing on the mid stakes, I think. And for me though, as time's gone on, I think I just enjoy live poker that much more. And I just live in Vegas and there's so much here for me to play. And I don't have access to Stars and GG and there's ACR, which I do play once in a while, I guess. But there's just not a lot of options. So I just kind of went full time live for a few years now, less and less online, and then after a while, I don't even think about it much anymore. I'm just pretty busy between making videos or coaching or I have a vlog now and a
Yeah.
family and live poker that keeps me busy enough just with that stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And you mentioned uh, you haven't been a tournament player your whole career, right? Because I'm pretty
Right.
sure you were a crash game player before that. When did you kind of make that switch to tournaments, and why did you do so?
It was kind of just years and years a gradual move to it. So 2005, I played zero tournaments, all cash. And then I started playing some stuff at the World Series in '08, '09. Maybe I had my first live cash around there. And then I started playing like the Sundays. I was an online mainly player back then, but I would throw in Sundays and I started throwing in Tuesdays too. So at that point, I was maybe 20% tournaments. And as the years progressed and progressed, and part of this is because the private game scene all throughout live poker kind of killed the public games. So after Black Friday, I was playing mainly online before Black Friday, mainly cash. Black Friday happened. So I moved to live poker here in Vegas, 1020 at Bellagio, 1020 40 or 2550 sometimes, no limit. And did that, and I would play 20, 30% tournaments. And then as 2015, 16, 17, private games started becoming more and more prevalent, and I saw the writing on the wall, so kind of switched over. Probably 2018, I was playing 70% tournaments.
Mm,
2020, pretty much, 90% tournaments, and now it's like 100% tournaments.
gotcha. And did you find success right out of the gate, or was there like a period of struggle where you had to kind of like adapt to tournament play?
Well, I had success out of the gate because I mean, not really, but while I was successful in tournaments doing them part-time. Like I was winning in the online tournaments a long time ago. And then I started playing live tournaments here and there, had some scores. My first one was like 80K at the win. And then I chopped a big one for like 190, 200K in 2010 or 11. Then I final tabled the main in 2012. So I was a part-time tournament player, was lucky enough to final table the main event. So I was already accomplished tournament player, but I always thought I could probably make more in cash, like taking out all that variance of final tabling the main and stuff, of course. But
Yeah,
so yeah. But when I
that's
did
actually
move
pretty
over,
crazy.
yeah, when I did move over
Yeah,
full time, it was an adjustment. And that was around the time I started working with solvers a lot, in 17, 18. There was definitely an adjustment period because I think with a lot of things, when you're trying to change things, you get worse before you get better. Changing the way you always have thought about poker. So that was an adjustment period, and then things really started happening for me in 2019, the very end of 2018, and then on. I kind of just things have went well for me.
yeah. You mentioned 2017, 18 when you started working with solvers. If my memory doesn't deceive me, I don't think you were like super early to the solver game, right?
I
Or was that
wasn't.
right
I
around?
think those
Yeah,
were released maybe in 15, maybe. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, I was just doing well, and I knew it existed. I just was like, I don't know, what I'm doing is working. My
yeah,
I mean, I would beat that game at Bellagio. For so many big blinds, it was insane. So I didn't want to mess with anything that was already working. And had
yeah,
I been playing GTO, I think I would have made less because I was super exploitive to everybody. I was exploiting everyone and things like that. Um,
yeah.
so yeah.
So, and did you kind of move on to exploring solvers just as a factor, because you kind of moved on to tournaments, or was there like a different factor playing into that?
Um, why did I start really do? I can't remember. It might have been like some downswings or something, or seeing some good players. I remember seeing like Sam Soverel, who moved to Vegas much after me, and he was this younger guy, but he seemed to be good at poker and gambling in general and knew what was going on. And I kept seeing him do things that I'd never had seen before, like over betting the turn and stuff. Like that wasn't a thing, back in the day. And so that's when I started seeing it around me, like changes. So I figured I better kind of adapt, again to the changing landscape, which I've had to do several times, over 20 years now.
Yeah, interesting. And when you kind of started exploring that, did you ever hire a coach, or were you kind of self-sufficient in your studies back then?
Yeah, I was good friends with Jason Kuhn, and he helped me. Um, we would talk about it, but I was kind of just self-sufficient. I was building my own stuff. I got a computer that I could build everything and run all my own POSIMs and the whole database and all of that stuff. So yeah, this was pre GTO Wizard and all that. Now it's so much easier. Um, but yeah, so I kind of just took it on myself. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Jason Kuhn, who's obviously also was a run once coach.
hmm
Was he kind of like, would you consider him to be kind of like your mentor, or were you guys part of like a larger kind of player group that studied together? And what kind of impact that has had on you as a poker player?
Yeah, he's had a big impact on me. It kind of switched. I think he used to look up to me when I was like a winning cash player years ago, and he was kind of coming up, and then it kind of switched because he went really heavy into the solvers, and then I mean, he's the type of guy that's going to be playing the biggest stake. Like if he's doing something, he's going to be the best at it and he's going to put everything into it. I was much more laxed in my approach. Like I've always made poker work and I do love it, but I'm never like, I've got to be the best and play the highest stakes and beat everybody. That's just not how I've kind of been throughout my career. And which has helped me survive for one, I think. And then I never had backing or anything like that, you know. So I just did it all on my own. And so I just had a cautious, smart approach to things. But seeing his, I've always worked hard, but just seeing his work ethic and everything is, he's inspiring and just how he lives his life, as far as staying healthy and eating and everything. He's a very big positive influence on me as far as just a lot of different facets of life, honestly. Poker being just one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I can looking from afar, I can certainly just yeah, double down on that. It
Yeah.
seems like Jason, and I mean you as well. I mean, there's some incredible consistency as well in both the gameplay and like the results across the years as well.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
all right, so we'll move on to kind of like the second part, which is actually getting ready for like a big series. As you know, this event is part of our Scoop Camp, which was like a 2 week event that we held here at Run Once to get people ready for the March series. Is obviously there's Scoop, the GG series, and I mean as we discussed, even ACR will hold a series in March, and obviously WSOP is not that far away as well. Uh, and you obviously have tons of experience with pretty grueling grind schedules. I mean, it's no secret that Tritons are very demanding. I think people are fairly open to that. Like you just go there for 3 weeks and
Yeah.
almost yeah don't leave the poker room. And I mean WSOP can be the same for a lot of people. So before a series starts, do you kind of go through like a certain routine to get ready? I mean, that could be even like a couple of weeks before that. And if so, what is your routine?
Yeah. Well, one thing I do is just think about what it's going to look like playing day to day, right? So if I'm going on a poker trip, like I'm going to go get a lot of snacks and food and, you know, the things I need, the supplies ready. If you compare that to maybe an online grind coming up, just maybe having some pre-made food, you know, meals, stuff like that, something that you can, you know, get quick. Um, the better you can stay on a schedule, the better off you're going to be. So yeah, going in, I think also knowing yourself and like some of your triggers are like what makes you feel good or like for me, for example, I like to get my heart rate up in the morning. Oftentimes in these series, I don't have time for a full workout, but I like to get my heart rate up. So I'll do like a 10 or 20-minute jog or something like that, or elliptical or stairs or something. I find that that is good for me. Um, I think the days can be pretty demanding, both live and online. Online, they can go really long, and it's a lot of hands you can see if you're multi-tabling. So, um, I think not wearing yourself out with like a huge work, you know, because sometimes we think to ourselves, we want to be the best we can be and prepared for this. So we're going to get up and work out for an hour and then meditate and then, you know, study for 2 hours and then you're going to play all day. That's like a very demanding thing for you to do. So I advise for people to just be realistic, know themselves. Will that make you tired? Maybe for some people it won't. Like I'm older now, so I notice mental fatigue, whereas I didn't 20 years ago at all. I used to just be able to play 12 tables all day and it not even phase me. Now I get lethargic, you know. So knowing yourself what gives you energy or takes your energy, I think is a big deal. Another little thing like that with me is like caffeine, like too much coffee, just it's just not good for my performance. I don't think as clearly. I'm not as calm.
Mm.
So that's something I've had to learn over the years. So I think listening to your body is just a big deal, and knowing what it needs, knowing how you're going to perform your best. yeah, is a really big one.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned kind of like doing a workout before a session. Uh, does that hold true across like the tournament series, like as even as it approaches kind of the latter parts of the series, or is that kind of like, or are you just taking it by the feel essentially?
Yeah, by the feel, like that's my plan. But if it's, day 20 at the World Series and I slept 5 hours for the last 3 nights, I might
Yeah.
skip my workout. Like you have to weigh the pros and cons. Like, is it actually going to help you or hurt you? And at some point, it's going to hurt you probably. So I prioritize sleep over everything else. Like if I'm not going to be like, oh, I have to get up at 8 o'clock and do my workout. Or if I need the sleep, I take the sleep, especially like I said, at my age, people don't realize I'm a little older, but it's a huge deal. Lack of sleep now is just a massive deal for me. So sleep for me is the number one thing for sure.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because before the call today, me and my colleague Andy, we were uh, we were actually discussing that because I saw on Google that your age is 46, right?
Yeah.
At least that's what Wikipedia says, and I'm like, is that a mistake on Wikipedia? Because I mean, Jeremy doesn't look 46, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's a combination of, I guess I have good genetics and, so I look younger and also it's, like I'm kind of in that era of poker players. Like I'm grouped in with Jason Kuhn and the early 40s, late 30s guys. There's a big group of people right there, like Isaac Haxon and Schulman and all these people I play live with,
yeah,
Brian Rass, like Scott Seaver. They're all in that group. Somehow I was just older than everyone. So I was playing online and was just a few years older. I don't know how that happened. I started like towards the end of my college career. So
yeah,
anyways, yeah, it's kind of I'm an anomaly a bit.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So when it comes down to a schedule, do you kind of plan out which tournaments you're most likely to are going to play, and how far in advance do you plan these?
Not a lot. So the World Series schedule just came out. We can use that as
Yeah.
an example. Historically, I do not. I look it over, but basically, I'm going to be playing every day, all day. Given
Mm.
that I do play everything, I probably should plan a little better. And as I've gotten older, I've also gotten more recently better at planning and like setting aside time to plan and like just kind of, being proactive with things like that. Whereas in my past, I've never been like that. I would just, just take it as it comes. And for me, I can also play maybe the low stakes, sometimes the high stakes. I play mix, PLO, everything, but it's hard to plan because if you bust something, then you have this. So you can't say I'm going to play this for sure. Well, you might miss this because you're in this. Or if I busted this and I can throw in a max bullet and a 3K no limit, and then the 50s tomorrow, I might do that too. So I think it's hard to set rigid rules whenever you don't know what you're going to be in. You don't know how tired you're going to be, how you're going to be feeling, if you're going to be ran down, things like that. So I like to just look at the schedule kind of like a week in advance as I go through the series and see like, okay, this week this is coming up, this week this is coming up, things like that. And then I kind of make a just a not set in stone plan of okay, I can play this if I'm out of this, and maybe I could play this if it works out. I'll see how I feel, type thing like that. That's how I approach it.
No, yeah, I mean that's completely fair. All right, cool. You mentioned kind of getting ready physically for a series and kind of nutritionally as well. Do you ever kind of place yourself in like a study bubble before like an important series, or yeah, do you kind of go over certain spots and what's your general kind of approach to studying before a series?
Yeah, I do. That kind of when a series is like on the horizon, kind of lights the fire. I try to study consistently. Sometimes I don't, but if there's a series coming up, a big series like Triton or something like that, I'm going to be really in the lab studying a ton. Whereas, I remember years ago going to one and I didn't feel that sharp for some reason, and I was studying like hours before every tournament. And some people don't like to do that. I know Jason, for example, he's a very consistent studier through the year. And then whenever he's there, he's not like he'll look up hands, but he's not doing a whole study session. That's more what he does through the year. For me,
Mhm.
if I'm not feeling sharp in this area or that area, I feel better if I hit it. So I've gotten up and studied 3 hours before a Triton before, and just hitting hand after hand, like this spot, whatever I've been rusty at. So for me, I like to do that because that's how I'm going to feel like I'm at my best. And it becomes very apparent to me, maybe leading up to this series, what I don't feel confident in. So I'll put focus in on that. So it's generally before the series starts, but sometimes if I'm feeling extra rusty or for some spot I don't feel good about, during the days of the series, I will actually hit the books pretty good too.
Yeah. And yeah, and when you do kind of study and use the solver, are you kind of using the trainer more, or especially like before you're about to play, or are you kind of jumping into kind of like the theory side and trying
Mm,
to
I,
understand the spot?
I think the trainer is what I mainly focus. If I don't have anything specific that I really want to dig into, I kind of just look at the broad, every spot, just like, just play a bunch of random spots. But I try to randomize what comes up or just any spot that comes up. So yeah, I won't go too deep into any one area unless it
Mm,
seems to be a problem area for me, then I'll focus more on that. So I try to just get a good overview of, so overall just feel pretty good.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. Um, we had a solver question here in the chat from Sebastian. He says you mentioned using Pio back in the day, and obviously now GTO Wizard is kind of more easily accessible to everyone. Would you recommend uh, the general kind of tournament population using Pio Solver or getting a monthly subscription to something like GTO Wizard, just for kind of like the ease of use?
Yeah, it kind of depends on your time commitment that you're going to have to devote to that. If you have the resources, so a nice computer, or you don't mind paying for a server to keep stuff on and you have the time to do it, building your own library will usually be superior. But now with GTO Wizard, so they'll just basically, you might pay a little more, but it saves you so much time, right? And if you don't, sometimes they might not have all the bet sizes or too many bet sizes, and then the tree gets a little wacky, kind of for my liking. You can now just kind of redo the tree and resolve and put in your bet size, three bet sizes or two bet sizes or one or something like that. And that's actually works pretty quick and well. So it's actually come a long way to being just a all-encompassing, almost all you need type of product, in my opinion. So yeah, it kind of depends on if you like. Some people like to build out the database and make it perfect and do all this. Some people don't. It's a big time commitment and it takes some resources. So depends where you're at with all of that.
Yeah, yeah. Good answer there. Um, you mentioned kind of when you're studying before a series, you're kind of trying to go over some of these spots that you might feel a bit more rusty in. How do you actually recognize those spots? Do you kind of take mental notes when you're playing, or is that something that kind of is like a larger, maybe like a larger problem in your like overall strategy that you kind of are aware of? Or so yeah, how do you recognize your mistakes?
So a couple of ways. It's just like playing the solver and then getting dinged for a big loss, right? And maybe if so, then maybe I'll focus on that and do that one several times. And you can see like this spot, wow, I'm losing a lot. I'm not understanding the spot. So that's one way. Just focus on that. Another is something that I'm in the process of doing is like I take live notes. Every hand that gives me a problem when I play live, I take down a note. And so at this point, I have for the last 3 years, probably of playing live poker, I have all these notes. So I review those later. So at night, I review those or the next day or whenever the series is over. So I find an answer to every problem. But whenever you look at the data over years, you can start to see themes in that data. So then I can start to pull out like, okay, this spot I definitely have, 10 or say I have 15 and most spots I have three like tough spots. So this is a spot that needs more, further investigation. I don't seem to be retaining what I've learned from it or something like that. So I think that can be a
Yeah.
helpful approach.
Yeah, for sure. And when you do play live, how do you take notes? Because I know that question comes up quite often. Do you just kind of take them on your phone? Yeah. Do you use a
Yeah. I just do it on Evernote, and
yeah,
I kind of have a shorthand little method of doing it
yeah,
that makes sense to me. Like not he bet 137,000, but just like, so I just go like cut off versus big blind. I list my position first. So cut off versus big blind SRP at I always start with the big blind, sorry. So it'd be 40 big B, cut off big blind SRP, right? So it's very minimal typing to get the point across. And then flop, turn river all in one sequence. And then the actions after that, X for check, B 25 for 25% pot, R 40s, R 40% raise, call would be C. And then that's how I do it. And you can get a whole hand history in one line basically. Um,
yeah,
so I feel like it's pretty efficient and effective.
yeah, for sure. Uh, okay, and is there kind of like a study that you think is a bit of a waste of time that kind of people should I don't know, avoid before a series?
I mean, honestly, I've considered studying in general to maybe not be the best thing before a live series, and especially depending on the stakes you're playing. Maybe ICM, I think post-flop ICM, those outputs can look really weird and wonky, and really no one is doing that stuff. So I have looked into that stuff some and just decided that I don't see people implementing these strategies too much. So maybe there's some EV to be gained. So, I mean, there's kind of a couple things about it. It's like not talking about ICM anymore, but just your basic approach. Like how much it's kind of like when you're the attacker and you're the defender, right? So as the attacker, you probably should play the same similar approach all the time because that's the GTO attack method. But as the defender, when they're like betting and stuff like that, your GTO response to that is based off their action, obviously. And live, sometimes live, I mean, even online, but live, like at the World Series, for example, in a 1K, you're gonna see drastically different things than that, right? So it doesn't always, you're better off. I mean, sometimes I would just take a live pro that's never looked at a solver over a solver guy and something like that because they're going to be calling down at the correct frequencies when in reality, like you have to adjust to the opponent. You know what I mean? So I do feel like some of that gets lost in study. Um, like it's great to burn it in as a baseline, but it's taken me years to be able to kind of do both. Like when am I using the solver? When am I not, in my head? Like this situation is not just doesn't apply because of this opponent isn't anything like a solver. So, but whenever you're training hours every day, it's hard to pull yourself out of that and think about what his range actually is, and because when you're studying the solver, you're kind of just thinking about what you should do. But really you need to base it off what their opponent is likely doing there.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty great that you brought this topic up because Paul in the chat had a very similar question about the same topic. Uh, you mentioned kind of obviously that against some of these players, you're just unable to utilize the same GTO strategies. How would you study for these opponents if you were in Paul's shoes?
Yeah, I mean, you can node lock, like if you think these are their bluffs on rivers, or if they don't bluff enough but they still bluff, you can node lock and take off 15% of their bluffs, and that can give you some clarity on some calling ranges or something like that. um, that's one good way. another good way is maybe counting combos. So this is like old school poker. Like this is how I used to play poker is I would get to the river with someone and then they're betting. I would count the combos of value hands they have and the values of bluffs they have. And you don't really hear people talk about that anymore, but it was really effective. And it gives you a mathematical formula right there, whether you should call or not, if you can correctly, deduce what their value is and their bluffs are. So I think that can go a long ways, especially in live poker, where people are less balanced and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to fundamentals in a lot of these spots, right? And I mean,
Hmm.
Phil came out with a course last year called Foundations, which kind of really tackles all of these kind of like very fundamental questions in poker. So would definitely recommend checking that out, Paul. Uh, Somebody asks in the chat about how do you even get like poker mentors? Not necessarily coaches, but how do you get that group of people around you that yeah might elevate your game? Because he says sometimes I feel like poker players are a little bit lonely in terms of development as professionals, not as players. So he was wondering where he could get a mentor that could help with strategy when needed, but also support for career development in general.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for many, many years I had no mentor. And I didn't have a group really. I moved to Vegas just by myself and started playing and met some people and had some friends, of course, but they weren't quite right where I was at in poker and everything. So, and then when I went to play online, I was just kind of a lone wolf. So yeah, really my my kind of group I have now of good friends and top players like Seth and Jason, Ben Tollerine, they kind of, we just all became friends through poker and just started talking about poker. So it just kind of organically manifested. But it's been invaluable. I would say that for sure. Just, there's just so many different areas of poker to talk about and learn about and improve on. And especially if you have 4 or 5 or 10 different people to talk to, it can be very helpful. So as far as someone who's maybe not quite there, I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe there's some good like the run of once, like forums or things like that. There's online groups because it's going to be harder for online people to do these sort of things. But maybe just reaching out to someone you think is good or, and saying you'd like to be mentored by them or something like that. Some people are willing to pay it forward and do something like that. Some are going to want to do coaching or something like that and get paid, but it doesn't always have to work like that. I guess, yeah, finding people around your skill level or slightly above would be ideal, I think, for mentoring a little bit above you, but maybe not so much above you that they wouldn't want to take the time to do it or something.
Yeah. Uh, this topic actually came up in an earlier call that we had with Phil and Seth Davies. And Seth actually had a really good tip for this, which was try to find a way that you can be useful to the group that
I
you're
was just
around.
gonna say that too as we were winding that question down. Like if you can provide value, that's someone that might not be willing to. If you're like, hey, I can do this or that or whatever, if you don't mind, and that involves you doing some heavy lifting, some grunt work that maybe people don't want to do, but if you really want it to happen, you'll be willing to do those things. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and Seth, I remember Seth mentioned that like his kind of skill was like building out these really good Excel spreadsheets
Yeah.
back in the day, and yeah, for you that could be I don't know like even like things like running sims could be a thing that I know that tournament players especially are super interested in.
Yep.
Um, yeah, cool. Right. Another ICM question from Guy here in the chat. Seems to be a big debate on Discord the other day about tournament is on the bubble or close, say 2 or 3 players away. Low jack raises, cut off 3 bets, small blind shoves. he's sitting in the big blind with king on the bubble. You are covered by all players except low jack. Uh, 25 players left, and you are bottom five in chips. What is the general strategy close to the money? I'm not sure if you were able to take all that information on because
I think I got it.
it's
Low
a
jack
bit
raise, cut
confusing.
off,
Yeah,
shove, small blind all
yeah,
in, and
yeah, and
I
you're
mean,
sitting in the big
I'm
blind
not
with
gonna
kings.
fold kings personally. Um, yeah, even if the ICM thing said to fold, I don't think ICM's not perfect either. Don't forget that. It's not a perfect proven strategy. It's just like what we're doing our best to model these things. And sometimes a lot of the old ones didn't account for you like running up a sack and winning the tournament enough. So yeah, I wouldn't be folding kings. I don't know the stack sizes or what, but it doesn't matter. I just don't think I'd fold kings no matter what, probably. So, I mean, it's not like they're going to be over 100 bigs. So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
especially,
let's.
sorry,
Yeah.
especially as a short stack, I would just be willing to hopefully, if you triple up here, you're going to be like middle or, you'll have a nice stack probably. So, okay, sorry, cut you off.
No, no, you're all good. Uh, you mentioned that you started playing tournaments without a backer, which I mean, I would assume that's not super typical, right? Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, not having a backer doesn't mean that you don't sell action, but at the same time, yeah, how do you kind of determine like when to kind of like take shots and what's your kind of overall bankroll management outlook?
yeah. So this is going to be very, person dependent based on what you have going on in your life as far as do you have steady income from anything else? Do you have a family? Do you have steady income from anything else could be a cash game. So that's how I treated it for years. Cash was just very steady money. So I never even thought about like, oh, to play this tournament, I should have this percent of my bankroll in play when I play a tournament. Now I think like that, but back then I didn't, because I didn't need to. If I played the 15K or 10K, it didn't matter because I know next month I'm probably gonna win, all my money back or more or whatever. So it used to be easier money, probably more steady also. Not to say I didn't have swings and downswings, but so and then that's changed as I've had kids and you realize like your monthly expenses used to be this when I moved to Vegas and now it's like way up here, have kids in private school and everything. So and now I'm full-time tournament. So the biggest downswing I ever had was less than 100K probably for like 14 years of my career. And now it's like routinely like 500K all the time. So deciding so I've done some evolution on it and I'm always getting it better and better down. Whereas I take a certain percent of my liquid money. I used to just kind of base it off my net worth. But then I had so much money invested in stocks and this and that that wasn't a very good number. So I would advise knowing where your money is at all times, for one. So for me now, I have a sheet with everything, all my investments. If I have crypto, any loan debts I have, or either way, like everything. So I look to the day, I can tell exactly how much my net worth is and exactly what my liquid dollars are, and then I will base my buy-ins. So if 100K comes up, I will look at the liquid number and decide how much of that I would want to risk on it. So it's generally like I feel uncomfortable doing 1% of it. And then if it's a really good spot, I'll go 3% or 5 maybe. If it's the turn, this just an amazing tournament that the ROI is high, I'm going to gamble more on that. Whereas sometimes I'll do a 0.5% maybe, if it's a low edge spot with high variance, but I think I'm winning still. So sizing your bullets accordingly to your ROIs and the variance, I think is important, and just knowing where you're at all times, because I would play these series during the summer and like midway through the summer things could look way different. Say for example, I had a lot of Bitcoin at one time. That could like drop in half, right? So my liquid dollars is kind of misleading, and it needs to be like you need to know day to day where you're at. And I could have just lost 500, 700K in tournaments over the last 2 weeks. So you got to stay on top of it really well. So I have a method now that works very good.
So do you actually update it daily?
Well, it's just linked to everything, right?
Oh,
So
yeah,
so I'll update the bank account and stuff just every once in a while, but all my stocks are linked. If I have any crypto, it's linked.
yeah,
Everything is just fed in there. So I don't have to do much.
fair enough. And how do you determine how many bullets to use in a single MTT? What factors you should consider?
So I never decide really before unless so I mean most tournaments I'm prepared to go the maximum bullets. Um, it just depends on what really depend like each bullet is independent of the last bullet. So if you sorry, I read that question, it threw me off. So what was I saying?
No,
Um,
it was a question about like how many bullets to use in a single
oh yeah,
MTT.
yeah. Each bullet's independent of the next bullet. So if I've busted 4 bullets and it's the Bahamas 25K main, for example, like, you just got to keep firing. So knowing going in, I might get in for 10 or 15 bullets helps ease the pain when it happens. I think being realistic and not even realistic, but actually think about the worst case scenario. And a lot of people don't like to think like this, but I feel better when I think about the worst possible thing that could happen. Rarely does it happen, but when it does, you're like, you've thought about it. You knew this was a possibility. And that even comes down to just going down and playing poker. And like you take this bad beat, going in, if you stop and think about it, okay, today I might get quad threes and lose the quad sixes. That's possible. So people just lose their mind when these things that happen not that often happen, but they happen still, right? So each bullet should be treated individually and assuming you're playing well still. So if you've busted 4 bullets, maybe you're not playing your best anymore. Maybe you need to take a walk. Maybe your ROI that you thought you had at the start of the tournament is now half of that or something. So think about that now. Like, okay, my ROI is this now. And maybe you have to size down. If you're taking big pieces of yourself, you might have to size down based on your bankroll requirements or whatever, mid tournament even.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I just listened to an interview with Stephen Chidwick where he actually mentioned the Bahamas main where he was in for I think he said 14 bullets, and actually he min cashed on his 10th bullet because of like the way that the tournament was
Yeah,
structured.
yeah, sure.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's a weird one. Yeah.
did you play that as well?
I did. I was only in well, I went late, so I only played a couple starting days. I think I was in for 4 and I min cashed and I got some bonus that partly why I went to it. So
Gotcha.
got a little money back. I end up losing 50K, but yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah, Justin, you are correct. Jeremy said that he does base on the liquid net worth, on the liquid bankroll, I mean, and not the net worth. And
Yep.
Sebastian in the chat wanted to clarify if Jeremy is saying he has 1 to 3% of himself. I think, Jeremy, you said that you go up to like 3 or 5% off your kind of total bankroll, right? For one single
Yeah, yeah,
tournament.
yeah. Yeah. 0.5% to 3% generally, but mostly it's just like 1%, but
Yeah,
yeah, at the maximum.
cool. All right, and now let's move on to the kind of the latter part, which is kind of grinding during the series. Do you, yeah, so do you kind of focus on what do you focus on during the series? Do you focus on kind of like always trying to play your best game, or you're kind of like you might play your C game but try to just capture the most EV possible? And yeah, how do you kind of like balance those things?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always try to play my best. I think, staying off your phone is important. I've gone through phases of not doing well at that at all. But it's just, especially I struggle with that if I like bust a big tournament and then I go play a small tournament. I'm like, I don't even care about this tournament or something. So, but if you can pay attention and pick up reads on people, like they're so valuable, and if you go deep in those smaller tournaments, they're amazing. So and there's a lot of money to be won, especially at the series. So yeah, staying focused. The headphones are a big one for me. They help me. If I get caught up in too much table talk, I have trouble focusing on a conversation and the poker that's going on. So
Yeah.
yeah, the more engaged I can stay. And during breaks, I take nice, good, long, fast walks. So
Mm.
I get a lot of steps actually during the series. I'm getting like 15,000 steps or more a day.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's a big venue too, and I'm walking back to a bunch of different to my room or whatever, and so that helps like keep the blood flowing and keeps your brain power boosted, I think.
yeah. And do you feel like I mean, I would assume that is true for yourself, but do you feel like you're kind of like your C game is still like at a very high level compared to like the rest of the field?
Yeah, I don't feel like I've never had like an F game or D game maybe, like it seems like to me anyways, maybe a C game sometimes. Like I know years ago if I had drank the night before sometimes and played a tournament, I was like that was my C game. I could tell. I was just not playing as well as I could. And you kind of make excuses to do this and that. But honestly, whenever you're a very studied player and have the fundamentals down, you don't do that stuff anymore, really, because you know the answer, right? Like
Mm.
this isn't a good play. So for me, knowing that it doesn't matter what I'm doing or if I've slept a lot or not slept a lot. I mean, sometimes I can't really think through the spot if I don't have enough sleep, but the very easy things where you're like, oh, I could check raise a flop with this. This will be fun.
Yeah.
I kind of just have that so dialed in because my fundamentals are so strong through so much study. That keeps you from doing a lot of stupid things. And that could be bluffing a river, hero calling a river, like years ago, you're just like, I don't think he has it, or I don't feel like folding today, because you can call any hand you want. But when in the solver, when you've looked at a spot so many times and you know that this would be losing like five big blinds, you're like, you can't do it unless you really have a read on the situation. You know what I mean? So, so yeah, that's a fair assessment. I feel like I don't tilt much. Sometimes I have focus issues, but I'm just a very solid show up and give it like, you know, A minus B plus like 95% of the time probably.
Mm. And has that been true for like the whole of your career? Have you always been kind of like mentally very stable when you're playing, or is that does that come with like very a lot of experience?
I kind of always have. I think I just have a personality, so I can't say
Mm.
I have some secret technique that will help. I'm just like pretty calm and just kind of I expect the worst a lot, like I said. So I kind of just see things for what they are and I don't know. Like, when I go play this tournament next week, like I'm gonna probably lose. So I'm gonna hopefully not. I'm gonna try not to. But when I do lose at the end of the day, that's what's gonna happen 80% of the time or 85% of the time. I'm not gonna make money and I might be in for three bullets, like 7% of the time or something like that. So having a lot of data actually helps with all this stuff, dealing with downswings and all of that stuff because you can look at the data and it's going to happen. It's already happened. It's going to happen again, so be prepared for it. And I think maybe that mindset I've always had with just going in a session and losing hands and or losing on the day. Like I just know I'm signing up for that, right? So I've always dealt with losing pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. It is interesting to hear you kind of essentially expecting the worst in a lot of like these spots that you come into, right? And kind of being, I think, mentally being pleasantly surprised when that doesn't happen almost. Because it is like a very stark difference between like some other areas that might not be poker, where kind of like the power of positive thinking
Hmm.
uh, is a big factor and things like that. Whereas in poker, I think you kind of have to rationalize a lot more, right?
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Constantino's added in the chat that obviously field size matters when you're taking your bankroll considerations, and yeah, for larger scale tournaments, you might want to risk less of your uh, net worth, especially like these massive light fields where you have thousands and thousands of entries. Um, and Austin asks, or says essentially that he always finds it that he does way better in high stakes rather than low stakes. Uh, you always read that you should be able to crush lower stakes to be able to move up. I cash for 10K gold pass on stars when I'm used to only playing up to $55 tournaments. Do you ever feel like you kind of have something similar? So let's start this question by asking what is kind of like the lowest buy-in tournament that you would consider playing?
Um, I might play like a 1K at the World Series, maybe
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
And and so how do you feel? Do you feel that you're kind of playing a lot differently in that one? Obviously, the field into 1K is a lot different, but in terms of like your performance, do you feel like you give the same performance in the 1K that you would in 100K? Or are you kind of like mentally already preparing yourself quite a lot more for the 100K?
Sometimes I might be just willing to gamble more because I would rather build a stack up or play the other tournament, like if there's something the next day I want to play. So that's not great poker advice to try to win at poker. I would say though, I'm not like gambling and like playing terrible. And in general, that's just sometimes anyways. In general, I think I'm playing pretty solid, just pretty good. I think my play is not going to vary a lot, but my play will vary based on the opponents. That's all. So if I perceive them as a lot different, then my play becomes different. But so if I'm in the cutoff and these three guys behind me look like they're going to fold too much, or they're telegraphing that they're going to fold, I might raise, 60% in the cutoff when I'm supposed to raise 40%, right? So in 100K, that's not going to happen because you have Adrian Mateos and Steven Chidwick behind you. So you don't get to raise 70% ever. So I will play differently, but it's mainly because of who I'm playing against,
Yeah.
and exploits I think I can take. But in general, I'm trying to win just like I do anything else. I might gamble a little more here and there depending on what the next tournament is the next day, things like that. But generally, I'm just playing good, solid poker.
Fair enough. And you kind of mentioned obviously that you've always been fairly calm, but how do you deal with downswings, especially like if it's during a specific series? If you break out like all of these tournaments, do you ever kind of feel down on yourself, or are you kind of just looking forward and not really affected by that?
I mean, I think it's taken me a while in tournaments it doesn't affect me as much as it used to. Sometimes I do feel down after a big tournament series, even just at Aria, it's like 10 days. And I think part of that's just like a crash, like an adrenaline crash or something, because you're playing every day and doing this, and then when it's done, you just feel weird. I don't know. Um, but in general, like I said, knowing like I keep stats. I have every tournament I've ever played live logged, right? So
Mhm.
I have data on everything. So I know how big my biggest downswing is dollar wise. I know how big it is in buy-ins wise, which buy-ins is a better metric to look at than dollars, honestly.
Mhm.
But whenever I can see this and I can look at this graph over 15 years of all the ups and downs, what was my biggest downswing? And you can just see it always keep going up and up and up, even though there's massive downswings in there. So just having that perspective of it just helps a lot of all the numbers that, you've been here before, you've done it before, this is possible. Also, if you're changing what you risk per tournament, say your bankroll was whatever, say was 100,000 and now it's 50,000, you should be having less and less of yourself in tournaments. So it's annoying, and then you're maybe only going to get half the upside now, but you don't go broke like that. You can't go broke, right? And that's why I think you can be pretty aggressive at times because you're going to be readjusting that number. It's not like you just stay at 1% till the money's gone at that because your liquid bankroll changes, right? So then your percent changes. So if you stick to that, it's like you can't go broke almost unless life expenses, take over and are too big. But
Yeah, fair enough.
or other things, gambling problems or who knows.
Yeah, George asks, is there kind of like a volume target that you're trying to achieve? And do you remember back in the online days, kind of like what was like the target volume for tournaments in a month?
Oh no, I never played online tournaments like
Hmm.
as my bread and butter. I would kind of put hands and cash as something I wanted to do, like, 20 or 50,000 hands of poker this month. And so I'd mainly focus on number of hands and hours, and I never set monetary goals at all because you just can't control it. So yeah, I think looking at it like that. So yeah, maybe set a number that you want to do. And I used to be more driven, like really my foot to the pedal for a long time. And recently I've kind of let up and I'm not, like I said, I do some other things now and have this vlog going and that takes up some time and coaching and, I make videos for Run At Once and things like that. So I'm less grinding and just like, oh, I have to get this many tournaments in. So I'm mainly just playing like the big tournaments I want to play and then studying and
Yeah,
doing some other things with my time.
yeah, fair. And I think George, that like most professionals, online professionals, I think they fall into that like I think 800 to 1,000 tournaments a month. So you're kind of spot on. So just before we finish, a couple of kind of like quick fire questions. What is the favorite tournament that you've ever played?
My favorite tournament
Yeah.
because of my result or because of
Well, that's up
just
to you. That's up to you to decide.
I mean, two stand out. Well, kind of three, I guess. Like the final tabling the main was unreal. I got fifth place in the main 2012. Uh, 2021, I got three-handed. I played an epic 50K PLO, and I actually made a video on it for Run It Once. 50K PLO, and I ended up winning, and it was the most epic final table with Ben Lamb and Blesnik and Omaha for rolls, and it got down three-handed with me and Negreanu and Helmuth, and then I got to play Helmuth heads up and beat him. So to beat the all-time bracelet winner for heads up in a WSOP event was really cool. And then more recently, the Triton win was pretty sweet. I won a 25K Triton Jeju a year ago for like 1.9 million or something. So that was pretty sweet.
Uh, so you have six WSOP bracelets. Do bracelets mean anything to you?
They do at this point in my career. I'm thinking more about like just what I've accomplished and maybe like I mentioned I've started this vlog, but that's kind of um kind of springboarding off of my success and trying to build a brand of sorts and and also just show people what it's like to play poker for a living or people want to see what someone who's won six bracelets, what's it look like for them to go play poker every day, this and that. So sharing that with people is cool. So yeah, I always said forever like it didn't mean that much, but as I get more and more accolades, they kind of start to mean something. Maybe my ego's getting too big, but it's not just all about the money anymore. Like the awards and like chasing the player of the years and things like that are just they're like the most fun things in poker for me. Like the PGT leaderboard, the WSOP, POY, I was in contention for a couple of years ago. That's the funnest stuff in poker to me. So I can't yeah, the money is one thing, obviously, but all the accolades mean something after a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes total sense as well. Funnily enough, we had a live session with Brian Hastings the other week as part of the Scoop Camp as well, and Brian also has six WSOP
Mm,
bracelets. So
hmm. Yeah.
pretty stacked. Okay. What is your favorite game type to play?
Probably like 8 game. I like eight
Oh,
game or 10 game a lot. Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like I'm as good at it as no limit. Like if I'm playing for money, it's no limit. PLO is fun too, but 8 game, you get the mixed games in there and they're so fun. And then but the great thing is there's still no limit in PLO in there too. So I have big edges in those and yeah, 8 game. It's game like the 50K at the WSOP is amazing and a lot of fun, although it's very long and slow. But yeah, lot of fun. So that would be my favorite.
yeah. Okay. Who are the three toughest players you've played against?
Um, hmm. I put Jason there for sure. Jason is, I just know him so well, and he's just so sharp in every spot. He's just so good. I'd probably put someone like Chidwick, Petrangelo, Ike, one of those guys up there too. Yeah.
All right. And yeah, what do you think there is like a certain skill that has helped you build such a successful and long career in poker, or a quality
Um,
perhaps?
yeah, it's really just this drive I have, just for poker. Like it's just been my top thing for so long. It's just like, it's one thing to say like, "Oh, I'd like to get good at this. I'll try to make time to do that." And there's another thing where you just wake up and you don't have to tell yourself to do it. You know that's what you're gonna do. And so that's how it's been for me with poker. It's like a real love where I never had to be like, "Oh, I need to play more hours. I need to study more." That was gonna happen because I loved it so much, So and it's hard to teach or coach, it's that innate desire. I think anyone who's been great at anything, they have that. But then they also have the work ethic too to push through maybe when they're tired or whatever. But it's really just this internal burning of always wanting to get better, always wanting to play. Mainly though, just get better, improve, things like that. So yeah, for me, that's what it's been with poker. Ever since the beginning, I was just obsessed. Like I just was. If you're going to be great at anything, you just need to be obsessed. And like I said, I'm devoting less time to it these days than I used to, but still love the game a lot. And it's just been a huge part of my life for a long time now. So,
I mean, that's a fantastic point to end this conversation. I just wanted to quickly mention that there are so many like parallels between what you've said in this conversation and what like Seth said during our
hmm.
conversation like a month ago as well. And this intrinsic motivation was like one of the key things that he mentioned as well as like his success factors essentially.
Yeah, cool.
So Jeremy, really appreciate you doing this. It was a fun conversation. I hope we get to do this again sometime. Hope everyone in the chat enjoyed it as well. Eddie, thanks for being there in the chat as well. Uh, yeah, any final words, Jeremy, before we go?
Uh, I don't think so. Yeah, hopefully people learn something from this and yeah, putting some new videos out on Run It Once about the Bahamas Supermain. So people seem to like the first one of those and I'm doing a series on that. So and yeah, check my vlog out. Yeah, I gotta plug my vlog too.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We'll drop it in the Discord as well after the call.
Sweet. Appreciate it.
All right. All right, Jeremy. Thanks. And
Thank you.
we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Okay.